So our story today is Cecil and the Big Wave, and it's by Adam W. Jones, and it's illustrated by Alessandro Pastori, and there's some really lovely pictures in this book. So I'm really excited to share it with you. We've been talking about ants and other insects here in the library, and so this is a fictional tale that I hope you enjoy. Cecil, the Littlest Ant by Adam W. Jones, illustrated by Alessandro Pastori. Cecil and the Big Wave. Every day after school, the young ants meet at Aardvark Park. They play basketball, soccer, and other fun games. Every day, Cecil comes to play, but it's always the same thing. "Go play with your dolls," yelled Moose, the town bully. He pushed Cecil down and laughed. "You're too small to play with us." "Eensy weensy Cecil," sang the pesky triplets as they skipped rope. They were always making up songs to tease him. Cecil's eyes filled with tears. He ran away from the playground and down to Ant Hill Beach. A few blocks away, he saw rocks in the sand, and he kicked at them as he walked along the shore. After a few minutes, Cecil looked up and saw a cave in the rocks, towering over the beach. He climbed up to investigate and discovered the perfect hiding space. "I'm not too little," Cecil said to himself. "I'm not too little to play with the others." Cecil turned and shouted into the cave, "Why doesn't anybody like me?" "Like me, like me," his voice echoed from deep inside the cave. At first, the echo frightened Cecil, and then he smiled because he thought it was fun to kind of hear his own voice. Like me, he yelled. Like me, the cave echoed. Okay, I like you," said a voice. Who's there?" asked Cecil. "Don't be frightened, Mun," said the voice out of the darkness. "It's me, your Uncle Juba." Uncle Juba had long dreadlocks that hung down to the middle of his back and curly whiskers all over his face. He smiled wide as he came out of the darkness and into the light. "You know," said Juba, "feeling good about yourself is more important than what others think. The ants in town don't understand me sometimes, but in my heart, I know I am a good ant." "You got problems that making you feel sad?" asked Uncle Juba. "How did you know I felt sad?" asked Cecil. "Oh, Uncle Juba knows a lot of things," he said with a laugh. "Who's that?" Cecil asked, pointing out into the sea. "Oh, that's a surfer ant," answered Uncle Juba. "He's the greatest surfer at Ant Hill Beach." Swoosh, surfer ant rode up a wave and then turned at the lip and raced back down the curl. Swoop. "Wow, that was awesome," shouted Cecil. "Uncle Juba, I want to learn how to surf. Can you teach me, please? Okay, Uncle Juba said with a laugh. "Meet me down on the beach tomorrow after school and we'll have our first lesson." "All right, see you tomorrow, Uncle Juba." Cecil climbed down from the rocks and ran home feeling much better about himself. The next day, Cecil met Uncle Juba on the beach. Uncle Juba leaned against an old surfboard in the sand. A hat covered his face, and Cecil could hear him snoring. "Uncle Juba," said Cecil, shaking him lightly, "it's time for my surfing lesson." "Yeah, man," said Uncle Juba with a big yawn and a stretch. Uncle Juba talked about respecting the ocean and being safe on the water. He showed Cecil how to duck dive, paddle for waves, and how to pop right up on his feet to ride. After his first lesson on shore, Cecil paddled to the ocean. Splish, splash. He wiped the salty water from his eyes and waited. Finally, Cecil caught a wave and popped up to his feet. He raced down the curl as water sprayed in his face. He held his arms out and bent his knees to keep his balance. At the bottom of the wave, Cecil turned by leaning his body. He lost his balance and the surfboard shot out from under him. Cecil fell into the wave as it crashed over him. Wipe out. Cecil practiced and practiced every day to become a good surfer. One day, after a successful ride, he paddled in and ran to Uncle Juba on the sand. "Cecil Ant," said his Uncle Juba in a very official sounding voice, "I hereby bestow upon you the title of Best Junior Surfer at Anthill Beach." Uncle Juba held up the surfboard with one hand and placed his other hand on Cecil's shoulder. "Respect the ocean, Cecil," he said, presenting the surfboard to Cecil, "and it will respect you." "This is your board now," said Uncle Juba. "You've earned it, man." "Wow, thank you, said Cecil. The next day, Cecil walked past Aardvark Park towards the beach with his surfboard under his arm. "Na na 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 na," sang the ants from school as he passed by. Cecil ignored them and continued on. It was a windy day and the ocean was rough. At the beach, there was a group of surfers looking out at the biggest waves Cecil had ever seen. "What's going on?" asked Cecil. "Just the most totally awesome surf in the history of Anthill Beach, dude," said Footsie, a goofy foot surfer. "Last one in is a rotten larva," yelled Cecil as he ran down the water. Cecil looked back, and the other surfers hadn't moved. Crash, rumble, roar! The huge waves pounded the beach. "What are you waiting for?" shouted Cecil to the other surfers. "Man, it's too big," yelled Footsie. "I can't do it," the other surfers agreed. Uncle Juba stood with the others. He smiled and gave Cecil a thumbs up. Cecil smiled back at his uncle and then ran into the water. He dove onto his surfboard and paddled out into the rough sea. Cecil sat on his board, looking out to sea as the huge waves lifted him up and down. He was waiting for the perfect wave. A crowd started to gather as word spread about a brave surfer who was willing to paddle out onto the big waves. Finally, Cecil saw it out on the horizon. As the wave came closer, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Cecil's heart went thump, 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 thump. As he paddled and paddled, he caught the wave. He popped up to his feet. He quickly rode down the face of the wave. Swoosh! He reached to the bottom and cut a hard turn. Zip! Cecil rode up to the back of the wave. He twisted his body to swing the surfboard around the lip. He made a perfect kick turn and raced back down the wave. Swoop! Cecil surfed like a pro. He sliced up and down that wave, and suddenly the wave covered Cecil. The ants on the beach couldn't see him, and they began to worry. Seconds later, Cecil shot out of that tube and glided along the curl. "Hooray!" shouted the ants on the beach. "He's amazing," said the post ant, who stopped delivering mail to watch. "He's the best surfer in the world," said a woman from City Hall. Cecil finished the ride with one final cut as he kicked off the back of the wave. Whoopee! Once on shore, Cecil was surrounded by a group of the town ants who had come to watch the brave surfer. "It's little Cecil!" shouted someone in the crowd. "Cecil! Cecil!" the crowd chanted. "We're sorry for the way we treated you, Cecil," said Moose, offering his hand. "Friends?" Sure, Cecil said, shaking hands with each of the young ants. Oh, hard feelings. Cecil, said the pesky triplets in unison. You can play with us anytime. We promise not to tease you anymore. Adora Pesky kissed Cecil on the cheek. Mwah! And Cecil blushed. Well, thanks, he said. I'm just glad you all realize that being little doesn't mean you can't do whatever you want. It's the ant inside that counts. Cecil and Uncle Juba sat on the surfboard at the edge of the water. They watched the waves roll in as the sun sank down to the horizon. I'm proud of you, Cecil, said Uncle Juba with a smile. Thanks, said Cecil. I'm proud of you too. So that's the end of our story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you think about all the amazing things that you can do, even though you're little. Cecil rode a huge wave. He was the best surfer at Ant Hill Beach. Maybe you can do that too, or anything else you set your mind to. Thank you for coming.